Welcome to Wellness Answer Man, where we dig for the truth about your family's health. I'm your host, Dr. Ray, and today we're going to go deep. We're going to tackle a story that's really sending shockwaves through the homes across America. And it's about something you probably have in your medicine cabinet right now, and that's Tylenol. So the Trump administration with RFK Jr. as head of Health and Human Services, they just dropped a bombshell on September 22nd, 2025. So as you probably heard, they announced that the FDA is now going to tell doctors that using acetaminophen, which is the main ingredient in Tylenol, during pregnancy might be linked to a higher risk of autism. And because of this, they're pushing for new warning labels. But here's the thing. Is Tylenol the single cause of autism? My opinion, absolutely not. It might be a significant piece of the puzzle that's leaving a lot of children behind. So we're going to connect the dots today, and I think you're going to be amazed by what I put together, because I don't think it's just Tylenol, but there's some other factors that really could be creating this perfect storm in our kids' bodies. I'm going to go through. I'm going to put together three primary things. I think you're going to be shocked because I've been talking about this for a long time. I had a theory on this that when I think the one thing that was missing was the Tylenol. Wait till you see why and how it all comes together. So if you're a parent, a grandparent, or anyone who really cares about the next generation, you really need to hear this. Now, before we jump into this, just a quick reminder that I am a healthcare provider, but I'm sharing my perspective. This is for educational purposes only. It's not medical advice. And always, I mean always, talk to your own doctor before making any health decisions. And these are all my own opinions. So what's the big deal with Tylenol? So for decades, it's really been the go-to for pregnant women. But the government's now acting on a growing wave of research. And there's studies from some really respected institutions like Mount Sinai, Harvard. They've looked at data from over 100,000 people. And what they found was that using acetaminophen during pregnancy could be associated with an increased risk of autism or ADHD as well. And people think because Tylenol is over the counter that it's safe. I'm going to tell you, no way. I mean, it is very, very hard on the liver. In fact, one of my patient's son-in-laws years ago had drank some alcohol and took some Tylenol. By the way, they weren't like an alcoholic. They didn't drink alcohol often. And they essentially never took Tylenol. And they had alcohol and Tylenol. And they ended up with liver failure and died as a young man. I mean, and now what we see, it's linked to autism. So how does Tylenol do this? Well, first off, your body has this sort of superhero protector, I'll call it. And it's an antioxidant called glutathione. It's in every cell. It's fighting off damage. It's keeping things clean, especially in the liver. And think of it as basically your body's personal bodyguard. So here's the problem. Tylenol is known to deplete glutathione. So it uses it up, and when a pregnant mom takes Tylenol, it can easily cross the placental barrier, and it gets into the baby's developing brain. So if glutathione levels drop in the baby, that tiny vulnerable brain loses this superhero bodyguard, basically. And this can lead to what's called oxidative stress or cellular exhaust. And think of it like the rust on the delicate wiring of this baby's brain. And this isn't just a theory. Research suggests that this process can mess with some really critical systems that guide brain development. So one of those systems is the endocannabinoid system, which is vital for wiring the brain for social skills and mood. Another is our hormones, which act as the sort of the architects of a growing brain. And we have animal studies that have even shown that acetaminophen can disrupt the connections between brain cells. And then you look at, after the baby's born, that challenge just continues, because when a baby gets a fever, what's the first thing many parents do? They reach for the Tylenol. But that fever is the body's natural defense system kicking into high gear. So when you lower it with a drug that's also draining their antioxidant Bodyguard, what you're looking at, that's sort of like that double whammy, especially if the system's already under stress. So, and as I said, Tylenol isn't the whole story. I think it's an amplifier. So it makes a vulnerable system much more vulnerable. So let's talk about another incredible stressor that many have thought was the real problem in the past, and that's vaccines. And I know mainstream science, including a massive Danish study that people will point to of over 1.2 million kids, supposedly found that there was no link between these vaccines. And in particular, one of the things that I believe is a problem, that's the aluminum in the vaccine. You know, a lot of people were blaming thimerosal, the mercury in thimerosal in the vaccine, where I kept saying, every time they'd say mercury, I said, I think it's aluminum. But the study says, Roy, there isn't as much a link. But when you look at it from a different perspective, not from cause, but of combination, everything changes. Especially when you go back and you start to look at some of these studies. So let me just explain a little bit about this. Many vaccines use aluminum as something called an adjuvant. So its job is to sort of get the immune system's attention, to really fire it up. Think of it as the hype man for the vaccine. So while some researchers have raised concerns about aluminum as a potential neurotoxin to the brain, the scientific consensus has always been that, well, there's not enough aluminum as a neurotoxin. It's the amount of vaccines should be safe. But that's not the way I look at it. See, I look at it through the lens of physics. Our blood is an electrical river. Okay, I try to put this in a way as I'm thinking about this, because I always talk about it's a colloidal system. Things aren't dissolved in the blood. It's held in suspension. And there's this electrical charge. But I'm going to explain a little bit different today. So it's like an electrical river where every red blood cell has a negative charge on its surface that sort of makes the cells repel each other. And it makes it able to flow freely and deliver oxygen. That charge is called zeta potential. And when zeta potential is strong, your blood flows really swift, like a clean river. Whereas aluminum has a strong positive charge. It's +3. And what happens when you introduce a strong positive charge into that negatively charged river? The charges then can get neutralized. That zeta potential comes down, and the repulsion is lost. And instead of being able to flow freely, now the cells start to sort of stick together. It's called flocculation. It's colloidal instability. It creates like a traffic jam on this cellular highway. And this is especially critical in the tiniest blood vessels, the capillaries. In a capillary, just so you understand just how narrow they are, they're about 5 to 10 microns wide. And for perspective, a single human hair is about 100 microns. And these are only 5 to 10 microns. Now, a red blood cell at 7 microns basically has to squeeze through in a single file. And the white blood cells, which are much bigger, typically they're like 10 to 20 microns. So I always say about 15 microns. They don't fit, right? So they don't fit through a capillary. So if the blood starts to get sticky and clumpy, these larger white blood cells rush to respond to that area, to the vaccine. They can easily create a logjam in those tiny capillaries. So you got to imagine, so the capillary is flowing. If a white blood cell comes along, it basically is going to, it clogs it. Nothing can get through that. And so when that happens, oxygen and nutrients can't get to the tissue. And now what happens is, the waste products can't get out, by the way. So now picture this scenario. A baby gets a vaccine that contains aluminum. Their system is dealing with this new electrical input that's creating some challenges. Then they get a fever, and the parents give them Tylenol. And by the way, that's pretty much the standard. You get a vaccine, and the doctors would say, hey, if everything should be fine. If they get fussy and get a fever or something, just give them a Tylenol. So you've now potentially have this traffic jam in the micro vessels, plus a drug that drains the body's master antioxidant, so you don't have the glutathione protecting it. You're stressing the liver. You're leaving the brain less protected. It's not just one thing. It's this sequence of the total load that's coming in. Then let's zoom out even further and talk about the immune system itself. So your body has two main defense strategies. It's called the Th1 immune system and the Th2 immune system. Think of Th1 as the frontline special forces. So when there's a virus that attacks, Th1 goes to war. You have these the T cells, the monocytes, macrophages. They're killing these infected cells, and they're creating long-term immunity. Where the Th2 system is more like the cleanup crew, and it makes antibodies. So when you hear antibodies, that's Th2, that's not Th1. Now, natural infections typically fire up the Th1 first, leading to this robust, lifelong immunity. And yet, the vaccines, they work primarily by stimulating the Th2 antibody response. And this is effective for creating antibodies, but often requires boosters because it doesn't always create that deep cellular memory. And then when the immune system is repeatedly pushed towards this Th2 response with these vaccines and more boosters, what happens is you get this imbalance. And a lot of scientists believe that constant hyper stimulation may be trading these acute childhood illnesses, which are training the immune system and creating this lifelong immunity, for instead we're getting chronic conditions later in life. So because you have a system that's sort of kept in a constant state of alarm, like it's searching for something, it's looking for a challenge out there. And so what's happening is that's what's leading to this widespread low-grade inflammation. It's been tied to all the autoimmune challenges, tied to a lot of chronic health challenges. So let's take a look let's bring this all together. All right. So you have a child whose system may already be leaning towards inflammation. They get a vaccine, which creates a powerful immune response. And remember, it's a Th2 response. You're introducing aluminum, potentially affecting the blood flow at the microscopic level. Then comes a dose of Tylenol, which depletes their antioxidant defenses right when their body is under the maximum stress and they need those antioxidants the most, particularly the glutathione. So this isn't about blaming one thing. It's about seeing autism not as a single event, but as a cascade of events. So it's the combination of possibly genetic vulnerability, meeting a series of environmental stressors that together become way too much for a developing system to handle. So this, when I talk about this, it may sound alarming, but the real message here is one of empowerment. The science is complex and debated, but the solution is beautifully simple. Focus on resilience. The human body is designed to heal. The true path to wellness isn't found in a pill. It's not found in a bottle of anything. It's honoring our own nature. It's understanding that there's this power inside our body that's more powerful than anything outside the body. So how do we do this? Number one is you reduce the toxic load. You got to question the automatic use of any synthetic drug for every little symptom. You got to embrace getting the body to function properly. It amazes me. You have, by the way, the vaccine that probably has the most aluminum is hepatitis B. And think about this. Why should every child, every newborn gets a hepatitis B vaccine? Why? They shouldn't get that. If the chances that the mother has hepatitis B, which you can test for, if they were a IV drug user and had some bad needles. Yeah, but how many mothers are IV drug users? It's ridiculous. Here's the thing. You got to embrace things like that restore our body's own natural state. What I mean by that, go outside, let your kids play in the sun, walk barefoot on the grass. That's a practice called grounding, which studies suggest can improve that all-important zeta potential that I'm talking about. The sunshine and grounding help that tremendously. And by the way, that helps thin the blood naturally. You got to focus on whole living foods, hydrate with pure water. These simple acts support your body's built-in detoxification system without ever overwhelming it. And that's the key. So the conversation that RFK Jr. and the administration have started, no matter, I don't care what you believe in. I really don't. I no stake in that game. I just say this conversation really is a crucial turning point, because what it's doing is it's forcing us to ask tougher questions, look beyond these simplistic answers. It's not about fear, it's about awareness. It's about seeing the beautiful, intricate web of these connections within our bodies and realizing that the power to protect our kids' health is more in our hands than we've ever been led to believe. Please share this episode. Talk to your friends, your family, your doctor. Question everything. Let's start a movement back towards natural, resilient health. Remember, it's nothing outside the body as powerful as the power that God put inside this body. We have an amazing power to heal. Let's keep this body functioning the way that it's supposed to. Hey, thanks for listening to Wellness Answer Me. And remember to please like us, subscribe, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notifications. Stay curious and stay well. Boom! We are part of the health revolution. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment on this video.